and I'm starting live. Autumn, winter 9 and the women's wear shows are approaching their end. We saw Vaquera not too long ago, and so I'm going to be reviewing Vaquera Autumn Winter 19 for you now. Vaquera are quite a well-known brand in New York, particularly known for their anti-fashion fashion shows and anti-fashion way of doing things. This season was held at the Ukrainian National Home, so it was quite a strange location. When you walked in, the chairs were all covered with cloth with a kind of white linen, and there were autumnal leaves scattered across the chairs, which was quite a welcome surprise, as outside, in fact, on the streets, it's just slush and mush. Overhead there was a fake radio playing and the sound of leaf blowers overhead, creating a slightly jarring mood, but you know, one that I wasn't really myself until the show started. Phil Collins opened the show with his In the Air, and as the first models walked out, the thing that really immediately struck you was the walks. The models were walking very fast, generally hunched over, sort of thrusting their bodies down the runways. And when I say runways, I mean that because they had to curl around the rows of the viewers. So from where I was sitting, you could see a head of a model as the model would come. The first was a brown velvet sort of, I'm not sure if it was a sort of a cape or an oversized dress, but that was paired with a brown hat, and you could just see this hat bobbing. As the model walked, it became kind of evident that this model wasn't necessarily that tall. This kept on. As models continued to come down the runway, they all seemed rather short, and then it appeared that they're actually rather young. Indeed, as the show continued, noticeably children. This is important, and I'll get to that later on. So back to the models' walks, as they're walking very fast, and it could have, you know, there was something really comical about the way they were moving. Some were really using their shoulders, some were really putting their backs into it. And it kind of was like the Monty Python, the Ministry of Silly Walks. It felt very choreographed in a way. And you could see I could see a lot of the Americans kind of cocking one eyebrow or looking a little puzzled. And I think perhaps, you know, necessarily familiar with Vaquera as a band, or they weren't really used to kind of irreverence, it could have seemed peculiar. I think in London as well, we're kind of used to it, to fashion. Certain fashion shows are comic, but it did feel a little bit out of place in New York, as most of the shows we've seen have been, you know, pretty serious and straightforward. But that's not really what Vaquera are doing. So as models came out, we saw fabrics including brocade, kind of created into these big puffball dresses, into midriff-bearing tops, a chintzy play suit, almost a jumpsuit, with slashes exposing the side boob and a bit of back. A little bit like sort of Maria from The Sound of Music had another heyday in 2019 and like come in and create some new garments. There was pink silk and satin ruched into different shapes. A sort of Disney princess shaped ruffled gown, long and flowing at the back and short at the front, was crafted from a kind of pebble grey toweling material. Everything had sort of an element of play about it. Specifically the sizes and the shape. And as more models came out in these misshapen sizes or sort of too small or constricting garments, it kind of became more and more apparent what was going on. Roughly midway through the show, a song from Disney's Peter Pan, Second Star from the Right, played. And that's where it kind of became obvious to me, I think, what Vaquera was doing with this show they were talking about. And that was youth. And not necessarily, you know, that scene looked at, you know, often in fashion, it's not about kind of, you know, teen culture or, you know, adolescence or growing up. It was more about not wanting to grow up. It was more about, you know, wanting to be playful. And watching the models stomp down like stubborn children felt puerile, but in a sense, like very, very fun. I wondered if Vaquera, you know, was saying they're a collective, they're 3 or 4 designers depending on how they work. I wondered if what they were saying was to their critics, why should we grow up? Why shouldn't we still have what we're doing? You know, play with these proportions and labeling. You know, often their clothes could be described as costume, but people are wearing them. But people sitting in the show today wearing their baggy trousers with, you know, the jeans that fold across the pocket and the loose crotch hem. So I wonder if that was kind of almost a bite back, a refusal to grow up. But at the same time, there were still elements of costume, and that's kind of what people want to see from a Vaquera show. I guess a similar hark to the piece that Vaquera did with the Tiffany bag, saying Vaquera and Co, and a kind of homage to Tiffany. She walked down wearing a pair of knee socks and then a pincushion on the sort of genital area with a kind of, I think it was either a plastic diamond, either a ring or a keychain, couldn't quite see, but definitely something kind of playful and fun there. One dress was so wide that as it walked down the aisle, it brushed the knees of the audience, and it had an enormous sort of joke-sized gift bow on it. I suppose one would insert the joke of one is a gift when wearing such an item. Fundamentally felt like, you know, kids, not necessarily kids playing dress up, but the kind of clothes you want to, you know, create from bed linens at a sleepover. One dress, in fact, looked like a dust ruffle with its line. The show came to a little bit of an anticlimactic end, as I think the music was a bit misjudged. So the final model walked down, and you could literally hear the fabric of her skirt, which is quite rare because you're kind of listening to deafening music. But actually, I thought that was really lovely. You could hear how actually taut and heavy the fabric was. And whereas perhaps some of them looked a little flimsy side, you really feel what this fabric was like from that sound. Overall, I think that I like what Vaquera are doing. I liked what I interpreted as this kind of desire to still play. It would be nice to see such good ideas being put into practice to create some more luxurious items. Whether that's, you know, them continuing to collaborate. Their dream collaboration would be someone like Michael Kors. That could be something really interesting to create some kind of, you know, wild and, you know, poking fun at the fashion industry collaboration. But let's see. For now, it was a pleasure to watch the Vaquera show. It was really joyful and funny. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll be back tomorrow with more, potentially our last shows of New York Fashion Week. Then bye!